Hey guys, I'm Madison Clark, and I'm going to be presenting on STEAM in grades pre-K through 2 today. I have really enjoyed researching this topic because out of all the lessons I've done in the education program, the STEAM lesson was my favorite lesson by far. It was just really interesting to see how different students shine during this lesson. It was just a really different lesson, and it was great as a teacher to be able to see how each of your students reacted. So it was really enjoyable, and I learned a lot researching this topic, and I really enjoyed it. So our objective for today is I will understand what STEAM is and what STEAM looks like in grades pre-K through 2. I will learn some of the benefits of incorporating STEAM activities into my classroom, and I will view examples of STEAM activities in grades pre-K through 2. So our main objective for today is to really dive into what STEAM is and what STEAM looks like in grades pre-K through 2. We see what STEAM is in upper elementary and upper grades, but it's harder to incorporate STEAM into these early grades. But students really love it, and it's really important to incorporate STEAM early because it builds this foundation for their later learning. And it's just really interesting to see how your students can critically think. So our big question is, what is STEAM? STEAM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. It is an integrated approach to learning that encourages your students to think more broadly and to think about real-world problems, because not only do we want our students to be smart, we want them to be able to critically think. They're going to be our future leaders one day, so we really want to instill this in their brains also. STEAM learning happens naturally every day for our students. And as children learn, explore, play, and try new things, young children have the opportunity to investigate the world around them. They learn and experience with all these STEAM skills and theories, and they don't realize it. So it's really fun to see your students do this because they're learning so much, but they don't realize it. This quote was from one of the resources I provided on your handout, and I really liked it. Each of STEAM's 5 subjects share a common approach and focus. They require gathering and using evidence to create knowledge or solve problems. And this really sums up what STEAM is. We really want our students to create their own knowledge and solve problems. We don't want to give our students these problems that there's just one right answer. STEAM allows there to be tons of answers, but they have to create their own, and they have to be creative and come up with their own ideas and answers. So it's just really interesting. So all of these subjects seem very difficult for young children, so you may be thinking, how do I do this with pre-K students or kindergarten students? But these children may not be ready to understand multiplication or fully how computers work or engineering. All these things you're thinking are these upper elementary things, but we can build a strong foundation for future learning. And all of these topics can be broken down for our younger students. So what do each of these subjects that make up STEAM represent in grades pre-K through 2? So let's start with science. Children are natural scientists, and they use the scientific method in everything. They try to figure out how the world works by engaging in a series of steps. And this is a scientific method for these young children. They may not be using the typical scientific method that you think of, that includes observing, forming questions, all of these things, but they are designing and carrying out experiments just in these simple ways. It may just be, why did my pencil break, and solving that. All of these things, it's just very important for these younger children to do these simple skills so they have this foundation for when they get in the later grades and they're doing more complex things. Technology. When we think of technology, we typically think of cell phones, computers, tablets, things of that nature, but technology is any type of man-made object. That could be a ruler, crayon, scissors, microscopes, anything of that nature that is helping students learn using this technology. It really supports children's development because as children play with these tools, they observe and learn from cause and effect, and they're able to see this hands-on and firsthand. These simple technologies allow children to understand how tools help us accomplish tasks, and they're really able to do this themselves because they're able to use these simple tools. Engineering. Engineering applies science, math, and technology to solve problems. It's putting all of these together. They're able to use materials, design, craft, and build. It really helps children learn why and how things work. And you may think that engineering is a tricky topic to teach these children in grades pre-K through 2. But when we think about the future, and we think about what our students' life might be like in 20 years, in some ways that's hard to imagine because we don't know the future. But one thing is sure, that these science skills, math skills, technology is a big one. And engineering, they're going to be very important, and we want to make sure our students are ready for this and are able to take on the world and solve these problems and use their skills. Art. So, STEAM started out as STEM, and that lacked the A, which stood for art. And they decided to add in art because we want our students to be able to innovate and solve problems creatively. We don't want just one answer. We want all of our children to use their own brain and come up with their own answer, or everything would be the same. We want this difference in our students. And this creates their creative mindset where they're not stuck to trying to solve this one answer that's right. They're able to use their creative thinking skills and create their own answer that is equally as right as their partner's answer. And art could look like painting, pretend, play, music, dancing. All of these jobs that we're going to see in the future are going to involve art. We think of art and may just think of painting, but all of these things, art is creativity, and we want our students to have that skill of being able to be creative. And math. In grades pre-K through 2, we're going to deal with more simple math skills such as more and less. We may deal with patterns, shapes, organizational skills, but it is still this math skill, and it's teaching them to use this to help them solve a problem and come to find the final answer. And as you can see in these pictures, these younger students at pre-K, they may be doing a recipe, dramatic play. They may be counting how many eggs or how much of this ingredient they need to put in this recipe. Or students, if they're engineering something, if they're designing something, building something, they might need to count how much supplies they need or count how many supplies they used. All of these things can be incorporated into these STEAM activities. So what are STEAM activities? STEAM activities are the hands-on activities that children do every day. Children don't realize that they're using all these skills every day in life. They don't realize that when they're playing or they find a problem on the playground anywhere, that they're using these problem-solving skills, STEAM skills, to solve these problems. Many of children's everyday activities are STEAM skills, even if we don't realize it. So it's a lot simpler to incorporate STEAM into your classroom because children use these every day. They're natural scientists. And these are the skills that children will use to change the world. We can have them memorize science facts, math, multiplication, and that's important later in life, but these skills to use their problem-solving skills, that's going to be major later in life for them because they need to be able to use their brain We don't need to shut that off and just have them memorizing things. We need to create this environment that allows them to think and use their brains. Children learn STEAM skills at a very early age, so it's important to extend these skills into the early childhood classroom. We don't need to stop this when children get into school. They do this naturally, so we want to keep building on this. We want to build up our future leaders so that they are able to think critically on their own and solve problems in the real world. We don't want to train our students to just find this one answer and not use their brain and not be able to critically think. We want our future leaders to be brave and creative and able to think on their own, because our students are going to be our future leaders one day, and we want them to be prepared. So I also found this quote from one of my resources, and it says, "When children play, they explore and build skills and theories about the world. When young children investigate their environment, they experience the satisfaction that can come from investigation, discovery, and solving problems." So it just really talks about how children play. They are using these science skills, engineering skills, all of these skills that we talk about. We just don't realize that children are doing them at the time. So it just really reiterates that it is capable to teach these skills to pre-K through 2 because children are so good at doing it naturally. So why should you incorporate STEAM activities into grades pre-K through 2? Research shows that there is a positive relationship between early STEAM experiences and future success in school. STEAM is awesome because it gets your students to think. So when we start doing these skills early in school, like pre-K, which is awesome, later success in school is a given because by the time they get there, they are really good and skilled at using their brain and using these math skills, all of these things to solve these problems. It's also great for dual language learners because it's a different approach to learning and teaching because students are able to create their own answer. From my personal experience, I taught a STEAM lesson with my kindergartners, and normally in a lesson, you have a couple of students that stand out and are normally your high risers, but in this particular lesson, I had students that normally you struggle to get to pay attention that are shining and being leaders and pulling others, teaching them how to do these things. And it was just really great as a teacher to see how your students react. And it was just, I had one student in particular who is normally just scatterbrained, doesn't want to pay attention, doesn't want to sit still. But in this lesson, he just shined. And it was awesome to see that because you see how different students react to different things. And he was great at solving these problems and using all these skills together to solve this problem. Students have an active role in their learning with these STEAM activities. It encourages their independent thinking, as well as their working with a group because they're having to think on their own to solve these problems, but they're able to communicate with a group in some ways to come up with the best answer out of the group. And most of all of these skills that make up STEAM, they are in demand. All of these jobs in 20 years, they're going to use math skills, engineering, science, art, all of this creativity. They're in demand, so we want to make sure that our students are prepared for this. And most of all, students love it. Students love it whenever they're in charge. They feel like they're in control of their learning. And it's just really awesome to see that take place in your classroom because it is rare to get students involved and excited and wanting to do more. But STEAM lessons, they always seem to get your students really interactive and wanting to learn more because they have that active role. It encourages their independent thinking. There's all these things that benefits of teaching these STEAM skills. And it's just really awesome to see that. And your students love it at the same time. It's just a really great concept to incorporate all of these life skills into teaching your content.